Hey guys, Ben Paint here, and today we are back once again for another video at Teamsport Bristol, and today we are taking part in an Elite Members event, Chase the Ace. Before I get into the format of the event, I'd just like to say, if you do enjoy the video, could you please hit the like button, and if you'd like to see more in the future, could you also subscribe, as I really do appreciate it and it really helps me out. However, the event was split into 3 different sections. There was a 10-minute practice session, followed by a one-shot qualifying lap, which is exactly what you're watching now as I come round the last bend on my out lap, and this was then followed by a non-stop 45-minute race. And in this race there was the option to take a 1 pit stop strategy, which was 30 seconds, 2 pit stops that were 12 seconds each, or there was the option of going all the way to the end without taking a pit stop. However, this was your fastest lap time plus 5 seconds, which was around 43 or 44 seconds. You'll have to wait till later into the video to see what kind of strategy I went with. However, as you can see here on screen, this was my flying lap for qualifying, and I was struggling as the karts have recently had new tyres, although despite this we do come across the line with a 38.767, which did in fact put me in 4th place on the grid, which I was extremely happy with. And let's get into the race. So here the race consisted of a rolling start, which you're seeing now. This was led by Kelvin in 1st, followed by Henry in 2nd and Finn in 3rd. So I was in 4th place at this point in there. You can see I was napping a little bit, there was a bit of a gap. And here is where I was a little bit confused, as I thought the green light would come on when we went past the start finish straight. However, it comes on here and you can see the 3 drivers ahead sort of bolt away, and I was left napping a little bit. I get nudged from behind because I really wasn't having the best of starts, and you can see there already down the ramp, 3 drivers ahead of me have pulled away completely, and that was one thing that I was a little bit upset with myself with, as I wasn't on the ball, and the 3 drivers ahead of me did just pull away from this point, and it was because I did have that little bit of a gap. However, for the first part of the race I was able to keep up with the 3 drivers ahead of me, and I wasn't really losing a lot of time. There was a little bit of a gap, but I was also maintaining the same size gap to the person behind me, and you'll see me look back an awful lot in this race, as I really did have to drive a lot more defensive instead of an attacking style. And this was due to the fact that I was a little bit slower on track this event compared to some other people, and I really wanted to maintain as many positions as possible, especially as I did qualify quite high up the grid. You can see straight away my lap time at 39.234, and this really isn't akin to the kind of lap times that we usually get, and this is due to the fact, as I mentioned before, the new fresh tyres on the front of the karts really do make it a lot more slippy, and there's a lot less grip, and I found it really difficult to take my usual lines on track. And this also meant that I had to be a lot smoother with the steering wheel, in which you can see I'm clearly not doing by jittering it from left to right and coming across the line again with a 39.034, so it's not just a one-off being in the 39-second mark, as you saw earlier as well. My fastest lap in qualifying was 38.7, so these are the kind of lap times that unfortunately I'm going to have to stick with, and checking back once again just to see if there was a bit of a gap, and there was, because I do believe that Mark was behind me and he was holding up the traffic a little bit, much like I was going to be doing later on. You can see on the left there the amount of karts coming round the top corner, but you can see ahead as well that I really am losing a lot of time to the top 3 drivers, and at this point I really thought there was time to settle down and settle into 4th place, as I didn't think already at the beginning of the race that I'd be able to keep up with these guys, as they did seem to find a lot more pace compared to me. And as I said, this did carry on later into the race. You can see my fastest lap now is a 38.698, which really isn't anywhere near my fastest time ever, as my fastest time ever is a 36.6, so a whole 2 seconds quicker, which really does show the lack of grip and pace on these new tyres, as they haven't worn in yet correctly. You can see as well I keep looking back and I'm taking completely different lines to what I usually would, by being in the middle of the track on that top hairpin, and once again in the middle of the track trying to cut off the inside line to my opponents. However, you can see here I do get absolutely bundled wide into the side and almost pushed into the side barrier there on the main straight as well, which I did think was a little bit over aggressive from the driver in kart number 22. However, I did try and maintain the gap behind them and try and keep up with them as they began to drive away. However, I did find that even round the bottom hairpin straight away they gained a lot more traction than I was able to have, and this meant that they could propel themselves up the ramp a lot quicker and a lot more efficiently, and already they are a few kart lengths ahead, and I was a little bit upset with that as I was feeling very good staying in 4th place. I felt that although my times weren't the best, they were very consistent. Once again, a 39.237 crossing the line, so another lap which wasn't the fastest, but I was just maintaining my steady pace throughout the race. However, George there just diving down the inside on the bottom hairpin, which is something that I still struggle with even from the last event on a Thursday, where I leaked about 3 or 4 positions, and therefore I did slip down to 6th place at this point, I believe it is. And unfortunately I don't know the exact results, which is why there isn't a position counter in the bottom of the screen, because at the end of the race I think some of the drivers that had not made a stop managed to finish ahead of me, even though they finished behind me on track. But there was a little bit of confusion there, and that's why I'm not too sure what position I actually came in terms of the overall standings, as I was told I finished in 9th position. However, I think that I finished about 6th or 7th, but that's by the by, and we'll carry on commentating over the rest of the race. You can see here George ahead of me, and I really was trying to keep up with him after he made that overtake, as I didn't want him to just drive off into the distance after that, and I really wanted to stay in behind him. And you can see straight away with 38.465, so already getting a much faster lap time by focusing on the driver ahead of me. As I've mentioned countless times on the channel, by seeing a car in front of me, much like George was, I was able to keep up with him and follow his lines through the corners and really focus on the back of his car, which meant that he was able to drag me along away from the danger of other cars attacking me, the ones that were behind me. And therefore, however, we were seeing here that he was actually escaping at quite a fast rate, and that's detriment to me not being on the pace as much as I should have there. Once more, a 38.298, so my lap times are coming down exponentially. They're falling a lot, and I was able to get faster and faster as the session went on, checking back once again to see if someone was coming up my inside, as that is a dangerous spot to be overtaken, as you will see later into the video. But here in front of me you can see that George is just extending the gap bit by bit, and this means that he's able to pull away from me. And unfortunately, as I've mentioned, I just didn't have the pace in this event to keep up with some of the faster guys, and here once more that led to him breaking away a little bit. And this was a little bit further on into the session with another faster lap of 38.411, so the lap times are coming down. My fastest lap currently was a 38.265. I'm looking to the inside, but unfortunately here I just left a little bit too much room, and this meant that the driver in kart number 10 was able to send it down my inside. And here I tried to tag along the back of him once more like I did to George, but you can see already going down the ramp that he is extending a little bit of a gap, and he is starting to pull away from me. He's looking over his shoulder, but luckily for him I really wasn't putting him under too much pressure, apart from on the first section here where I was able to close up, but unfortunately he did break away. We move on again into the race, and here you can see another driver sending it down the inside on that corner. They do go in very deep, and I did look for a little bit of a switchback, but it wasn't coming. And here I decided that I was holding some people up, and I thought now was time to come into the pits, so I came in here for a 30-second stop. So I stopped on the right hand side and I waited for the end, and here I was pulling out once again in a bit of clean air and around the same place as I was before. However, I was a lap down and obviously waiting for other drivers to come through. Here once again later, the same driver doing the exact same move. However, this time I was able to maintain the position by securing the switchback, and this meant I was able to pull away from him rather than being stuck behind and allowing him to break away like other drivers have done in the rest of the race. Here again, moving on, you can see my fastest lap was a 38.182 and my previous lap was in fact a 38.237, so my lap times really are coming down. They really are cementing themselves in the low 38s. However, this is still not a fast enough time to try and break away from my competitors. You can see they're looking behind me at the driver behind, and there straight away Jason has just slipped down the inside on the exact same corner where I am leaking all the positions. And this was a point in the race where I was a little bit upset to lose that position, as I was maintaining my place, and you can see here this was the reason, because there was a lot of blue flags being raised. So I did move wide to allow the driver behind me to come past. However, the driver behind me was actually in direct competition with me, and that meant that I did actually lose a place. Rather than just allowing the faster drivers to come through, I instead allowed one of the other drivers that were behind me to push past. And as strange as it sounds, I am very happy that this has happened to me so early in my karting career, as I am still learning at the end of the day, and these elite members events are really throwing me in at the deep end, but I am able to hold my own, and this is something I'm very happy with, especially as a lot of the drivers here are far more experienced than me. Although I have managed to pick up a lot of tips from other drivers such as Harrison, who was actually behind me at this point in the race, and I was really trying to keep him behind and put myself into more defensive situations rather than just maintaining the same racing line that I have been taking throughout the course of the race. However, as we transition here, this was in fact the start of my fastest lap of the race, even though I was defending as hard as I could in order to maintain the position that I was in, and I'm unsure what position that is at this point because of the laps and the pit stops. As mentioned, you can see there looking both sides, really was worrying as to which way Harrison was coming from behind me. You can't really see him with the camera angle, but believe me, he was really giving me a run for my money, and here I was trying to stay ahead of him, but I was also trying to keep as close as I could to Jason as well ahead of me, to see if he made a mistake and see if I could push past him. But you can see there as we crossed the line with a 38.091, that was my fastest lap of the race, so I didn't quite make it to the 37-second mark, which I was a little bit disappointed with, as I definitely felt the pace was there. Just at this point in the race where the tyres had warmed up and the track was a bit warmer, I was having to defend on some very unorthodox lines. You can see here in the middle of the track, rather than to the left, sticking as close as I can, again getting really tight to the apex, and even switching to the right there, you can see him on the left hand side, so I was able to push him wide rather than have him on the inside. You can see there on the left as well, Joe holding up the last lap sign, so this was in fact the last lap of the race. You can see here I really wanted to try and push on and make an overtake on Jason if I could. I was right behind him through the bottom section, but he did just manage to have a little bit of a better exit out of the bottom hairpin. At this point I realised that rather than trying to push forward and really try and force an overtake, I thought I really would cement the position I was in. So I got as tight as I could to this corner and as tight as I could to the second hairpin, sticking to the right hand side of the track, so forcing Harrison to go as wide as he can and sticking tight once again to the fast right hander, and we come across the line there with 38.512 as our last lap time. Although I dropped a few positions, I was still very happy with my overall performance. You can see there trying to give Harrison a little fist bump and almost end up in the wall there, but there was a very good bit of sportsmanship there. But as I said, I was very happy with the overall performance, and I hope that I can push on and do more in the future. However, as always, my Instagram is linked below in the description, so if you do want to give me a follow and get in contact with me, then please do so. Please leave a like and subscribe for more in the future. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.